This week's reject is my young adult high fantasy novel, Everwell, the story of Jeff the Boy's lost year. It was rejected by Coteau Books twice. I am a sucker for punishment. I'm a reject, you're a reject. I'm a reject, oh, oh, oh. I'm a reject, you're a reject. I'm a reject, oh, oh, oh. Chapter 1. The Lucky Penny. This is the story of Jeff the Boy. But before you hear his story, you really must hear the story of Jeff the Man. What could be said about Jeff the Man? Volumes of books could be written about Jeff the Boy and his exploits. But Jeff the Man, he was something different. Jeff the Man owned a company where his employees called strangers on the telephone for their money. He was all the world thought a man in his 40s should be. He had a mortgage on a large house, a steady income, and he flossed twice a day. He reached all expectations placed on him. One afternoon, an acquaintance asked him,
"Do you enjoy what you do?"
He laughed as if the answer couldn't have mattered. To Jeff the Man, enjoying yourself or having fun were novelty ideas. Jeff the Man knew nothing of adventure or friendship or fun. He answered the acquaintance,
"To enjoy life, you have to conquer it first, so I'm on my way."
Jeff really believed that if he worked hard enough, one day life would reward him with enjoying the fruits of his labor. But already he was so far out of practice, real joy or even real genuine experience would be impossible for him to attain. After a hard day's work, Jeffrey Jefferson loosened his tie and slid into his not yet paid for car. As he opened his door, he saw a penny on the ground. Now, this wasn't just any penny. It was a lucky penny. Only certain people can be drawn to a lucky penny. It has nothing to do with its shade of copper or what side it lands on when it escapes pockets or purses. Those who are drawn to lucky pennies can notice them with their eyes shut. They have set many worthwhile events into motion. For example, in 1842, Alexander Mackenzie gave up the drink and took to taking long walks. In a farmer's field just outside of Ayrshire, Scotland, he found a lucky penny. Mackenzie picked the penny up. It was next to a printed advertisement for the new land that would become Canada. After flipping through the document, he made the decision to leave Scotland for the new and promising land. Helen, a woman he secretly wanted to marry, also moved to Canada with her family, and within 31 years he was Prime Minister of Canada and married to Helen, the only woman he ever loved. That's the kind of thing a lucky penny can do. Jeff the Man was not the sort to believe in lucky pennies. Still, as soon as his body hit the smooth vinyl seat of his car, he knew the penny had an answer for him, an answer to a question he had forgotten to ask.
"That's stupid,"
he thought out loud to himself. The burst of speech embarrassed his lips, and yet the feeling still nagged him. He did the opposite of what he desired to do. He opened his door, looked around, slipped the dirty penny into his clean pocket, and drove away as far as the stoplights would let him. It was as though he lost himself for a moment and needed to go home to get himself back. At home, he placed the penny on the coffee table that he didn't like anything being placed on, not even coffee. Jeff's house was like a rural museum in winter. It had few visitors, was unnecessarily large, and ordinary things were displayed in places of importance. His walls were filled with framed pictures of places that Jeffrey hadn't been to, his bookcase filled with old books he hadn't read. He tried to forget about the penny, but it taunted him, sitting in that place of honor. It seemed to ask him,
"Why did you put me here if I wasn't important?"
He ignored the penny at first, but at exactly 7:37 p.m., Jeffrey surrendered and examined it. It appeared typical. He was half disappointed that it was nothing, and half angry that he thought it might be anything but. Like any other Canadian penny, it emblemed a twiggy maple leaf on the front and Queen Elizabeth II on the back.
"A normal penny. Of course it's a normal penny. I'm going insane. I have to do something normal, like the laundry or watching TV."
His internet was acting up and the laundry already done. While expressing his anger towards finished chores and faulty Wi-Fi, he noticed something. The year on the coin. It was 1981. This wasn't strange in itself. How could it be? But the date pressed on Jeff's stressed mind. He thought of significant events of that year. Historical references occurred to him, like the death of Terry Fox and Bob Marley, The Pope was shot in the head and survived, but he could not for the life of him remember one thing that happened to him that year.
How old was I then? 11?
He did the math.
Okay, I would have been in Miss Ward's class. She had a 5-6 split. No, that's not right. I was only in her class 1 year. She must have not had a split that year. 11? 11? Grade 6 and 7? Well, that summer my cousin Craig came to visit. I was 11. I have that picture of us when we went dirt biking. That was the year that my bike accidentally ran into his, and he fell onto the road and almost got hit by a semi.
Jeff breathed a sigh of relief, content that the memories of 1 year of his life were not lost. He sat down on his couch and chuckled at the thought of forgetting a whole year. Suddenly something occurred to him.
No.
He didn't actually remember his cousin's visit. He remembered the picture and the semi-story being told to him, but the actual first-hand memory was missing. Dread bore down on him. It weakened him. He walked slowly to bed. He couldn't tell why he cared, why he was making such a big deal about it. He lay there, face down, while his thoughts pressed into dreams, and he fell asleep. The next morning, Jeff was at his parents' house. His mother was on her knees weeding in the garden, her fingers white with strain, her cheeks red from sun.
"What are you doing here, Jeff?"
she asked. Jeff and his mother were alike in many ways. She was busy, and when she wasn't busy, she was thinking of things that might busy her. In the few minutes her son was home, she had already calculated the errands that would suffer from his visit and had scheduled in her head when she may do them later. They were too used to each other. It was years since they laughed together or shared a sincere moment. Jeff's mom blamed it on the lack of grandchildren. She already had a scrapbook, custom made, for when they would make their way into the world. On the mauve cover and bright yellow lettering, it said, "Children are the ushers of joy." She had been known to leave it out where Jeff could see it.
Why? Can't I visit my parents whom I love for no reason?
"Jeff, I've never known you to drive 3 hours to see the parents you love in the middle of the week. Is Christmas early this year?"
How's Dad?
"Good. He's working too hard, falling asleep when we watch our programs. So what are you here for, Jeff?"
Her tone suggested that she was okay with him coming over for reasons that did not involve her quality time, and that maybe she had things to do anyway.
Do you still have those boxes of my old grade school stuff?
"Oh, sure. They're in the basement in the storage room. Why?"
I just need something, that's all.
Jeff searched the basement for a few hours. He was usually more efficient, but he found the search struck an emotional chord. These objects represented Jeff's past. In his absence, the storage room became a museum of his life. He picked up a book his father read him when he was a child. He bent the paper back and lifted his thumb, releasing pages. He stuck his finger in, unfurled the pages, and read a passage out loud.
The difference between him and the other boys at such a time was that they knew it was make-believe. Well, to him, make-believe and true were exactly the same thing. This sometimes troubled them.
Jeff the man remembered where he was when his father read the passage to him. He was up to his chin under his white and blue blanket. His father's voice changed with the characters as he listened to the lost boys building a home for Wendy. An overwhelming sense of melancholy took Jeff. He couldn't help but face the reality that those moments were gone. He couldn't go to them, and they would never swing around again. They were forever out of reach. The most helpful find was a stack of scrapbooks he used to make with his mother every year. They were full of objects he'd collected from each year of his young life, the dates printed on the front. Jeffrey Jefferson, 1978. Jeffrey Jefferson, 1979. Jeffrey Jefferson, 1980. Journal entries, drawings, stories, pictures, and report cards bulged from the pages. The 1981 scrapbook did not bulge. It seemed as flat as the pages it came with. Only a few objects made it in. Jeff looked over his report card that year and found he'd received A's in science. Jeff remembered being horrible at science. There was also a picture of him and his family on vacation in Drumheller next to a Stegosaurus statue, but Jeff couldn't remember being there. The most shocking find of 1981 was what wasn't there. There were no stories from 1981. Stories were Jeff's trademark activity as a child. He tried to write a story for every person he met and often gave stories as presents. On Christmas of 1979, he left a novel about circus bears under the Christmas tree for his mother. In 1980, he wrote a musical about a zebra piano hybrid that made her way to Carnegie Hall. and in 1982 he wrote a collection of short stories from the perspective of the coins that are put in vending machines. He was shocked to find that he had not written one story during 1981. The closest thing was a journal entry about a sledding accident he had been in. The journal entry was dictated to his mother and recorded in her tight cursive. It said,
"There's something I'm trying to remember. Something? Someone? Some place, maybe? But it scares me, and I'd rather not think about it. I'd rather forget."
Jeff the man closed his eyes and tried to remember the accident, the actual incident, not what people had told him. He remembered lying down in the December snow, people gathered around him saying that everything was going to be okay. He remembered the hospital room and the orange-brown plastic cup he sipped his water from. He remembered a nurse asking him why he took his snowsuit off on the hill, and a doctor trying to explain to him in dumbed-down child speech that he was paralyzed from the neck down and would never walk again. He remembered his mother saying,
"That's city property, and they allow kids to slide down that hill? It isn't safe. I knew it wasn't safe."
What did they call it? Suicide Hill?
He remembered the fence they put around it because it was deemed unsafe for children. He remembered becoming a cautionary tale told by anxious mothers and helicopter dads. He remembered his best friend BRITT telling him that some of the kids were mad at Jeff for getting the best hill closed down, and some kids thought that being paralyzed from the neck down was punishment enough. He remembered that the doctors who told Jeff he would never walk again were the same doctors who marveled when each day he could move a little more of his body. After just 2 months, he was walking around as if nothing had happened. As for the actual accident, his mind did not possess that memory.
Maybe the memory loss occurred when I hit my head, but a whole year? Mom?
Jeff called, pacing through his childhood home. She dropped her laundry pile.
Yes, Jeff, what is it?
When did we go to Drumheller?